All India ranked 32 in CA final, ranked 25 in CA inter, articleship from a big 4 firm, industrial training in a leading company, overall the best student, that's 1 in 800 in the Department of Commerce at college, and communication skills that were adequate to navigate my way through any group discussion or personal interview. In Jan 2008, as my CA final results came out, could I have asked anything more from life? Except, as I later realized, a job in Kolkata. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Anurag Singhal, and I am here to share my little story on how I have overcome the fear of missing out for the past 1 decade of my stay in this city of joy, also devoid of economic opportunities. I still vividly remember that day on 3rd September 2008 when I had battled it out with the best minds of the country in course of a 10-round interview at this FMCG major, when I was informed that I had been selected for this INR 10.61 lakh per annum job. Ideally, I should have been on cloud 9. It was, after all, a princely sum of money. But leave aside celebration, I was actually turning misty-eyed. You know why? The job location was in Kolkata, and I had to relocate. For the past 9 months, I've been struggling from pillar to post, struggling for a job in Kolkata. But the deal breaker always used to be my locational preference. Now the moot question comes, why this desire to stay in Kolkata? It was most emotional in nature. So I have been the only son of my parents, and post my sister's marriage, their only source of emotional support. They simply could not reconcile themselves to the idea of sending their son to a different city only to visit them twice or thrice a year, Holi, Diwali and so forth. Now the second option which I had was to relocate them to the city of my posting, but then that meant that I would force my father into premature retirement and then take both of my parents away from a social ecosystem that had sustained themselves for 30 plus years into the unknown. And I was not very sure whether I wanted to do that injustice to them. So I decided to play the typical Shravan Kumar and search a job for Kolkata where I could meet my parents every day. They said that this was not correct. So once I had joined this company in October 2008 and quit it after a period of 2 months without a job, returning back to Kolkata, they said I was committing career harakiri. In the aftermath of the global financial crisis, jobs were even harder to come by. And you know what? I started having those moments of self-doubt, anxiety, whether I was doing the right thing. Some rays of hope. I got a job in an audit client where they had set up a newly set up corporate finance vertical, and they offered me a Kolkata posting. Wow. But the irony was that their standard pay scales were almost 50% of the job I had quit. Not that I was particularly perturbed by the salary part, but you know, in India, they tend to evaluate you basis your CTC. And when everyone around says the same thing, Anurag, you're doing a mistake, you do tend to start questioning yourself. You have those surges of anxiety, self-doubt. That classic fear of missing out was at play. That am I doing the right thing? But you know what? Lady Luck, as I later realized, always has a plan B for you. A plan that is so unique, so wonderful. One day, I put my foot down and said that if Kolkata is the constraint in the linear programming equation, what could I do to optimize my happiness here, given the additional skill sets that God had bestowed me with? So instead of cribbing about the lack of economic opportunities here, what could I do to salvage my fortunes? So I started as a freelancer, writing resumes for a vast diaspora of professionals. Same for these course writing sessions, doing equity research for US listed companies, and more. What else could I do well? Well, yes, teaching. My academics were good and public speaking skills were also decent. So my weekdays would be reporting to this MBA college at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, teach for a couple of hours, and then rush off to office for another 10 hours on those complex Excel spreadsheets. Sundays would entail rushing from one college to another. So it was an 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. session on corporate laws, followed by 11:30 to 1:30 on international finance, and then 2 to 7 on tax planning. The age gap between me and my students was hardly 4 to 5 years. Some bullied me. Others kind of liked the honest intelligence that I had on offer. Eventually, I was happy. There was a mission to be accomplished, and in spite of all the tiredness, it's very frustrating to week after week work without Sundays, but then I was happy because I had a point to prove, not just to everyone, but to myself, that I had not come back to this city just to live a laid-back life. I had a point to prove that my intentions were honest. Now, as far as the job was concerned, the sword of transfer kept hanging around my neck. And then one day, this random consultant calls me and arranges an interview at a prospective employer. They asked me about my motivations for a job change. And I said very honestly, "Sir, I wanted to be surer about staying in Kolkata. So I'm quitting a listed company to join an unlisted Kolkata-based mining major because I want to see my mom every day, not just twice or thrice a year." For us, staying together was the first priority, and then job, career, the big bucks definitely came thereafter. I also got an opportunity to have fantastic opportunities at work, got the CA Young Achiever Award from my alma mater, started taking these general management and communication classes for CA freshers. And it was there that I found my ikiga, connecting with the youth and mentoring them. In course of these interactions, I also realized that a lot of CA freshers without the adequate communication skills end up struggling desperately for their jobs. So we launched a job portal for chartered accountants. That was the first of its kind in India. Meanwhile, again on the job front, because of the demand-supply mismatch, career stagnation again started becoming a concern. I wondered whether I should now leave Kolkata for good. I decided that I should probably take my attempt at this one-year MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. But 2 months into a dorm, and I realized that staying away from family just wasn't possible. So post the completion of the course, I would necessarily have to come back to Kolkata. But then, by this time, I'd spent 21.5 lakh on the course fee, spent a year and foregone that salary. How could a Kolkata Marwadi return home empty-handed? So me and my wife decided to take our startup commercial on campus. IIM Ahmedabad professors guided us through every step of this journey. Some even joined our advisory board. Now imagine a situation where I used to complete a 2.5-hour exam in just 1 hour, simply because a professor had allowed me to pitch for my startup for 5 minutes at some external guest event. I used to bunk classes, attend a lot of these networking dinners, walking that 6-minute path from new campus to old campus and pitching for our services. It was magical. Meanwhile, there was this campus placement saga where I realized that the CA and MBA combination was in high demand across multiple companies. And after an impressive interview, the national finance head of an e-commerce major gave me his visiting card and said, "Anurag, the moment I set up a fulfillment center in Kolkata, I'll hire you." There was this dilemma that when there are these golden opportunities there, which are kind of once in a lifetime on campus, should I still give them up and return? But I realized that my father was literally counting the days to my convocation so that I could come back. So I came back to Kolkata in April 15. My wife manages this startup since I took up a full-time job. So this startup has now been extensively covered by the media, works with 125 companies in 6 countries, and it operates as an all-women work-from-home startup. I've been doing well in my job, getting some promotions, getting more projects to work upon, and my parents are also happy. I've launched a book on accounting for people who think they hate accounting, because in MBA college I used to take a lot of these classes for my engineer friends. Then I launched this online channel where I mentor these thousands of youngsters through my videos, and also became an instructor on various learning platforms, dabbled with the stock markets and so forth. Now, if I reflect back on the decade that went by, 2008 to 2018, there's a lot that happened, and I have not honestly had a single Sunday in the last 10 years. But then what I realized that my glass half full was probably far more enriching than the one that I had relinquished a decade earlier. Maybe I wasn't meant for doing just a job. Maybe I wasn't just meant for this rat race. At least for me, I was able to replace the fear of missing out with the joy of missing out. And I'm sure that if your intentions are honest, the same will be the case with you. Thank you so much. All the best. Bye-bye.